We live in a world of beautiful wonders, monuments to human achievement and the sheer improbability of our existence. We also live in a world of conflict, torn by societal forces decades or centuries in the making. Sometimes, when the buzz of our day-to-day lives fades into the background for just a moment, we have to ask, how did we get here? What small change at the beginning of history might have led us on a completely different path? I think about this a lot. What is the inflection point of history? How far back would you need to go to make the world truly unrecognizable today? And how small a change would it truly take? What if the rain had come 2 days later at Agincourt? What if there hadn't been a drought in 1788 France, leading to the famine that would kickstart the French Revolution? Or what if hyper-intelligent rabbits evolved alongside humans, engaging in a Cold War to last millennia? Well, I suppose that depends on whether you believe in God. Sandbox of God is a 2004 puzzle simulator game created by David Galindo, aka Vertigo Gaming, or Mr. Chubbagins. It was inspired by the Grove series of Flash games, as well as several early Maxis titles like SimCity, SimTower, and SimAnt. In the game, you play God, but you aren't exactly all-powerful. In each era, you have a limited selection of actions to take, each of which you can do only once. The order you choose, however, has massive ramifications as the game progresses. In later eras, some actions are blocked off, as certain conditions from previous eras are not met. Throughout the game, you also occasionally receive prayers from the people below. Well, sometimes the people. You can then choose whether to answer the prayer with divine intervention or allow them to work it out on their own. Through your actions and non-actions, you can guide humanity to construct civilizations and evolve into the modern era. Or they may be stuck in regressive settlements with no prospect for advancement whatsoever. It all depends on your choices. We start in Era 1 million BC, with a blank slate of a world. In the upper right, we can see all the options we have for actions, which we can see details about by mousing over them. The first era is where we have most of these, and where our choices have the most impact on the rest of the game, so it's well worth thinking deeply about the order in which we want to do these things. However, it's also worth doing them just completely randomly and seeing what happens. First, let's create man, and there they are, in their little Flintstones outfits. If we make an earthquake, a large crack is put in the earth, and if it rains after that, the crack fills with water to make a river. Along the bottom of the screen, we can see the state of the ground, which is currently mushy. If we hurl a meteor at the Earth now, it lands mostly intact, creating a large rock. A couple of turns after this, the rock erodes down into a mountain, which the humans quickly go live in. We can also make bunnies. Cute! Next, we can make wind, which doesn't seem to do all that much, and finally we create trees. Hey, cut that out! Aw, man! After we've exhausted all our options, we press the End Era button and the game tallies up all our choices and scores our outcome for the era. We start the game at rank 10, but if you play well, the rank will decrease as you move through the game, with a goal of reaching rank 1 by the end of the game. In Era 2, which takes place in 1 AD, we see a couple of options that are unavailable to us due to our actions in the last era not unlocking them. It's important to note that some of these actions are mutually exclusive from each other, so it's not possible to have them all unlocked at once, and that's not really the point of the game. Rather, the enjoyment comes from seeing the results of your actions in the previous eras and the different ways that the world can evolve depending on your choices. After going through a few of the options, we create a heat wave and receive our first prayer. Man's food is spoiling, and they pray for us to save their provisions. As a merciful and loving God, I of course grant this wish to my people, and they gain IQ. We can also create a terrible sign to strike fear into the hearts of our subjects below, which naturally increases their IQ even more. Sandbox of God uses IQ as a stand-in for intelligence and score, and alright. No, I don't have time for this. I promised I'd keep this one under 15 minutes. Just go read The Mismeasure of Man by Stephen Jay Gould. Anyway, moving into the next era, 500 AD, we see the humans evolving their mountain settlement into a true rock city, and in our slate of actions, we see our first plague, delineated by a red outline. This one is a swarm of flies. We can also build a farm for the humans, but I feel like we should wait to do that until after we've used the flies, because otherwise the farm is toast. This is also the first era that includes rest as an action, which, as God, is something I can really get behind. Moving on to 1000 AD, the city becomes an imposing castle, but more and more options are unavailable to me. I'm starting to think I shouldn't have let those bunnies eat the trees. Soon, we receive another prayer from man. They desire a code of laws to give them a moral framework to live by. Since I'm nothing if not a helpful god, I grant their request. Sometimes the ramifications of our actions actually take a little while to become clear, but after another action, humanity's IQ increases due to the laws we gave them. In 1500, the human city has evolved into a true medieval village, and the most notable action in this era is a new plague, turning humanity's water supply into blood. When we do this, the river cutting through the center of the world turns red, and humanity repents, gaining more IQ for their faith than us. In the year 2000, we give humanity its most horrific plague, Y2K, I mean the killing of the firstborn. The screen is filled with screaming souls of dying children, and the terrified humanity begs mercy, giving them a final boost of IQ. May they learn to not meddle in the affairs of God again. I mean, it's not like they really did anything wrong here, but, you know, gotta stay relevant. The final era is 2100 AD, and there are only two options here, one of which is blocked out, so we simply rest and move on to the end of the game. Here we're given a score, a rank, and most interestingly, a checklist of all the things we accomplished and all the things we could accomplish. The goal is to replay the game until you can 100% this list, and it's very fun to see all the cool stuff that we can work towards now knowing it's possible. Icy lake, volcano eruption, nuclear strike! I'll cover a couple of these later on, but first let's talk a little more about the breadth of choices given to us using the game's simple mechanics. So let's rewind back to Era 1 million BC, and look at our options. In the previous game, you'll recall we summoned the rain before the meteor strike, meaning the ground was soggy and the rocks stuck in it largely intact. However, if we strike the meteor before the rain, it hits the normal ground and makes a crater, which, after the rain, is filled into a lake. But if we go back and make the heat wave happen before the meteor, then the ground is hard and the meteor pulverizes on impact without leaving anything behind. The simple manipulation of the ground texture before the meteor strike has drastic ramifications going forward in the game, as without the rock, humanity has no place to build their city, and so must look elsewhere. Finally, in the most convoluted case, if we have it rain, make the meteor hit, allow it to erode, then strike lightning and create the heatwave in that order, the rock will be transformed into a volcano, which, yes, in the next era, allows us to trigger an eruption. Like I said, the ramifications of Era 1 are felt throughout the entire game. If, rather than letting the bunnies eat the seedlings, we grow them into trees by making it rain before we summon the bunnies, then they will make their new home there, and soon we start getting some interesting prayers. At a high enough IQ, the rabbits even start creating their own woodland settlements, collecting silver and designing a civilization of their own. Sidebar, it's pretty funny how the game insistently refers to them as bunnies until they become bipedal and create a society, after which they're referred to as rabbits. So far, I've been talking mostly in vague terms about how to achieve certain things in the game, but from here on, there will be major spoilers for the endings of the game, so be warned of that. I would consider there to be two main endings for Sandbox of God. Although one only gets you to rank 2, and the other one gets us all the way to rank 1, I feel that the rank 2 ending is actually the more interesting, so I'll talk about it last. To achieve the rank 1 ending, we have to let the humans create their rock city while fostering natural forests, granting the bunnies IQ prayers at every opportunity, and most importantly, knowing when to let humanity fail. Specifically, when they pray about their food spoiling in Era 2, it's important to not answer their prayers, as they will then invent their own food storage, giving them a massive IQ boost over the alternative. Through this path, their farm can survive the plague, they build a catapult, discover oil, and the bunnies too evolve to be intelligent with their own cities and riches, and everything seems to be leading up to war until, in the final era, the second option is unlocked: peace. Here the humans and rabbits, through their faith in you, sign a peace treaty to last millennia, fostering the utopian human-rabbit future and earning the player a rank of 1. In the alternative route, however, things are a little bit different. The bones of the run are still the same, with evolving the rock city, leveling up the rabbits, but with a couple alternate choices here and there, the ending changes drastically. By 1500 AD, man is already hyper-intelligent, but when we strike the plague of the blood water upon them, they have the capability to filter the blood and laugh at our so-called plague, gaining copious amounts of IQ. And yes, in the next era, when we strike them with the plague of the firstborn, their advanced medicine conquers the plague. Man has truly moved beyond God. In the final era, man bulldozes the rock of laws we granted them, having no more need for our primitive moral guidance. We have the same choices as before, rest and peace, but when we press peace, man laughs. They know better than our peace. They are threatened by the Lapine menace, and they will deal with it themselves. The humans launch a nuclear strike on the rabbits, sending both civilizations back to the Stone Age. And the game ends. After 100%ing the game, which actually takes quite a few additional runs to catch all the specific circumstances, we unlock the archive, which is full of interesting information about the development of Sandbox of God. It has a page with some of the game's influences, which I spoiled at the beginning of the video, but include the Grow series, the early Maxis games, and shockingly not this Futurama episode. But most illuminatingly is this section, titled The Theory Behind the Sandbox of God. You see, winning the game means getting all your people to the final era with them still being faithful to you as their god. In the game, if you get too many IQ points, your people will rebel against you. It's interesting to see that today, with the decay of society, technology marches onward. If man gets too smart, they will consider themselves their own god and won't need you to lead them. Does that mean this game is against technology? Of course not, but I am against making science your own god. Rabbits, of course, need all the help they can get. If you don't help them grow, they won't progress. Likewise, if you help out man in the beginning and let them evolve on their own, they will grow too dependent on you. Imagine if God came to Earth today in the form of how he came back in the biblical times. Hard to imagine, to say the least. Now imagine if God really did give rabbits all the brains and power. Okay, that sounds kinda stupid, never mind. Hope you enjoyed the game, I had fun making it. David Galindo, aka Mr. Chubbigans. Sandbox of God is super fun to play around with, even if I've already spoiled the major endings of the game. There is still a lot more to do, and seeing the consequences of your actions play out is incredibly engaging. The graphics are simple, but very beautiful in their own way, and the music, drawn from several different sources, is very apt throughout the entire game, which also features some very compelling sound design, as with the Plague of the Firstborn Children. However, if you want a different graphical style, consider checking out the game's remastered edition on Steam, which has a unique tabletop game style graphical redesign, and is pretty charming all around. It's only a few bucks and supports the creator. After Sandbox of God, David Galindo would go on to remake the PS1 game, Or no Ryori, in his own series of restaurant and cooking sims named Or no Ryomi. These were popular in the game maker scene, but didn't really reach outside of that. At least, that is, until 2012, when Vertigo Gaming released Cook Serve Delicious, an updated take on the Or no Ryomi series that sold over 1 million copies, spawned 2 sequels, and last year even got its own remastered edition called Cook Serve Delicious Remastered. That's hilarious. Anyway, if Sandbox of God appeals to you at all, you can download it for free from archive.org or grab the remastered edition from Steam for just a few bucks. One of the most shocking things I discovered in this video is that the link to the Vertigo Gaming website packaged in this 20-year-old game is still active, and even the old walkthroughs and stuff are still up. As always, the links to all of that are in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.